Good morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us or listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you get more information and listen to previous shows at our website, which is www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and developments about people and information and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two of my friends, and they are Marc Cameron and Bill Gregg. And guys, Marc already read it, beat me to it, he waved, and Bill just did as well. And these two guys are very active, as many of you folks know, in the theater community. And I've known them, I guess, ever since I've been to Asheville for many of their activities in the theater community. And specifically, we're talking about an upcoming event, which will take place on, Marc, what was the date on that again?
It is June 25th, a Sunday at 6 p.m. at the Weaverville Community Center.
Okay, and it's going to be a project you're going to want to see. It's actually, the show is called the Laramie Project. And before we talk about that, what I'd like to do, Bill, is just get a little background from folks, especially if speaking to them for the first time on a podcast. And so what I typically ask people is, in terms as a little kid, Bill, you grew up where?
I grew up right here between Weaverville and Woodfin.
Okay, and when you were growing up between Weaverville and Woodfin, did you always know what you wanted to be in the theater?
No, not necessarily. I really thought I was going to be a pharmacist and play a lot of golf.
Well, you at least fulfilled part of that, playing the golf. But what got you? Why do you want to become a pharmacist?
It was a good career move for me. I was into science and chemistry, and I made pretty good grades in that. And I played golf on the golf team in high school. So I figure, okay, I'll go to Mars Hill for a couple of years, transfer to Chapel Hill, and get my pharmacy degree down there. Well, in the senior year in high school, I got into the theater program and started doing drama. Dropped the golf, dropped the idea about going to Chapel Hill for a pharmacy degree, went to Mars Hill and finished my theater degree there in 3 years.
Now, do you remember, in terms of Mars Hill, do you remember your first play you ever were in?
Oh, yes. I was in, I was certainly, my first play as a student, I was in Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and I played the oldest guy in the play.
Okay, but I could see you, I could see you being in that role. Here's the question. Do they have a record of that performance anywhere?
Well, we certainly have photographs of that performance. And my second one, I just had a photograph that I posted on the alumni site. I played Reverend Hale in The Crucible. That was my second play.
Here's my idea. My idea, you may have heard me tell this for Mars Hill or Sod or anybody. I want everybody to recreate as a fundraiser their very first role,
Yes.
Because again, they didn't have videotape then, or they didn't tape stuff. And wouldn't that be fun? You wouldn't have to do the whole role, but just 5 minutes. Wouldn't that be a great thing to show?
Yeah, either of those two roles would be fun.
Okay, but just food for thought. If you mentioned to Sod or Mars Hill, a fundraiser I want to do. So you then started acting in college, and then the bug just hit you and you stopped doing
Absolutely.
the pharmacy?
I was in multiple plays, and then I did an internship in my senior year at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., very large regional theater. And then I was smitten. I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And so then I went to graduate school at the University of Virginia, got my degree in acting and directing, and on to New York after that, and off-Broadway stage manager. Got my equity card pretty quickly. And then less than a year later, I was back in the regional theaters again, and out to Minneapolis to the Guthrie Theater for 4 years. And that was really where it all gelled and came together. And the folks I worked with, from Patti LuPone to Val Kilmer and many, many others, Kelsey Grammer, some very famous folks when we were all just getting started. And we see where they are now. And I'm here. I'm in Asheville, and I love it.
And you also acted with somebody else pretty famous, a woman, somebody by the name of Liz Aiello.
Yes, that's my wife, Liz Aiello. She's pretty famous around these parts.
Okay, and so
and it's the Liz Aiello. Aiello.
Aiello. And so, how did you guys did you meet in acting or on stage?
We did. I was the associate producer at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival in Montgomery, Alabama, and it'd just been open for a year. And Liz and the troupe came down from New York to do Pump Boys and Dinettes.
Now,
and she was in the cast.
about the pharmacy thing. Did you ever get to play a pharmacist on stage?
No, I don't know if there are many roles for pharmacists.
I was wondering. Okay, that'd be kind of a goof. And I'll turn then to Mark. The same kind of questions, Mark. You grew up as a kid where?
Oh, I grew up in the lower Naugatuck Valley of Connecticut, just outside of New Haven.
Okay,
Not a big theater place.
Okay. So when did you start acting?
I came out of my very quiet, shy self in high school, and if you wanted me to do the benefit at SART, I would have to do the tap dancing number from Gypsy. I forget the character's name. Tulsa, that was his name. I only did the tap dancing. I taught myself how to tap dance in my basement, listening to Ethel Merman.
So that was your very first.
Past.
That was your very first role.
Yeah, and then I went on to How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and in a real theater. I've done so many things over the 30 or 40 years I've been doing this. I can't go back and remember. Lot of stuff.
And you also do some film stuff as well, and
yeah, I got my SAG card on Miami Vice a long time ago.
And then something else that always impressed me with you, as well as Bill, you also direct too. And the question I asked Mark, do you have a preference in terms of acting or directing?
Now, at the stage of life I'm 66. I prefer directing. It's more of a challenge to me. And I would like to do more of it. I would like to do some main stage stuff. So I think for 2025, I'm going to put out some proposals and see if I can step into some doors here and do bigger productions, because I used to do those back in Connecticut and I did it in Miami. So I think maybe it's time. I kind of hit out with COVID because I have some personal issues with immunity. So I'm starting to get back into the flow of things.
And the same question, Bill, in terms of preference, do you prefer acting or directing?
Oh, definitely directing, and now much more writing. I prefer both of those to acting. I don't mind teaching acting or voice for the actor. Those I continue to do. But myself, I'd rather be, behind the camera, filming Marc, as opposed to acting in front of it. So yeah, directing and writing are the things I'm doing now most.
And it's funny you say that, Bill, because almost all actors I know who also direct or have directed will say the same kind of thing. But the reason, guys, is they don't tell the truth, is you don't have to memorize the dialogue that way. So you get somebody else to memorize it. Right. And especially, I don't know if you got to see Marc's performance, but I thought it was brilliant, Marc. The one play you did, the two-person show about the artist.
Red.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Bill, but he just blew me away. Did you get to see him in that performance?
I did indeed. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that was just incredible, but a little small part. Was that the biggest part you ever had, Marc?
I would say pretty close to. It was probably 70% of the dialogue. And I mean, it's all about him, but you have to find that balance when I was doing it and let the people that played Ken, have their time on stage and make their points and be part of a serious part of the fabric. So it was even with Dakota and a couple other, I did it with 4 different people. You had to find the balance with that particular actor to make it work as a 2-person play. But there ain't you drop a line, there's nothing for that other person to help you with. Well, so it was a challenge.
Well, that points out the advantage, I guess, though, Marc and Bill, of doing a 1-person play, because if you drop a line, nobody knows excepting you or the director, so with somebody else, you can screw them up, but the 1-person play, you don't have to worry too much about that, but just
the pressure's on with that 1-person play.
It is.
Yeah. Really Bill, did you ever do 1-person play?
I actually never performed in one, but I've directed a few, and particularly Amanda Ladd, I directed in 2 1-person plays. I think that's right. No, I directed her in My Name is Rachel Corrie. That's the one I directed her in. And I just saw her recent one-woman show at Mars Hill.
I'm getting a chill as you talk about it, because I thought she was brilliant. I mean,
yeah, she's able to. She was back in 2007, her first one-woman show that we did at Mars Hill.
It's interesting too, because of your background in Mars Hill. When you see somebody way back as a student. Can you kind of tell right off the bat whether they have it or not?
Oh yeah, very much so. Well, and it's not just whether they have it or not, it's their commitment and dedication, how hard they work at doing it as well.
Yeah, because I would have loved to have seen Amanda back as a student, but just amazing performer. I've seen her a couple of things at Saw It. Fast forward then, guys, to this upcoming production you're doing, the Laramie Project. And I guess, Marc, first of all, how did you choose that project to work with, and then the two of you together? How'd that come about?
Well, Bill and I are friends because I knew Liz Aiello a long, long time ago. She was a nurse. I was a nurse. Well, I was a nursing student. So I met her back in New Haven, Connecticut, decades ago. And then when I moved down here 5 years ago, we all connected, and then we became best friends. And what was the question?
No, how do you come up with the Laramie Project then?
Oh, how did we come up with the Laramie Project? As a gay male, as a long-term survivor of HIV over 40 years, as a man living in the South, observing what's going on these days in Florida and Montana and the political divide, I just thought it was a good idea to go down memory lane little bit, and back off and see what's happening and what happened then, and has anything really changed? Have we really made any progress? And actually, there was going to be a production of this, and then COVID kind of canceled that out. I think it was going to be at Parkway. And ever since I knew that, I thought that play's got to be done, And it's Pride Month, and I can't think of a tough story, but a better story for us to go back and reflect. And also, I'm finding out that this younger generation of LGBTQIA kids, I'll call them kids because I'm 66, don't really know their history very well. And it doesn't hurt us as a society to step back and look at things and go, wow, that was then 25 years ago. Have things really changed? Have things gotten worse? What's my responsibility as an audience member sitting there watching it and listening to it? What have I done to change things?
And if
have I changed?
I mean, jumping to Bill, I think you were telling me off the air, right? You had done the play one time, or
we actually did. We did it in Mars Hill, but we were in the transition between the Owen and Day Hall construction. So we created a thrust space over on the Moore stage, and we did it there with the students at the time. Very well received. And we did community outreach with Youth Outright. That they came, some of the students, the director at the time came to see the production. We had a talk back with them afterwards, and with a minister. And so it was quite a moving experience, not only for the audience, but for the students that were involved. And it allowed some of those students to have a voice, which had not been stated before. They were able to sit and talk back and talk about their who they were.
And when you told me about that, I was amazed, because I know a little bit of the history of Mars Hill, and that you were able to even do it, because 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I kind of wonder if Mars Hill would have ever done that show, so.
Probably not. But I think, times do change some, and we hope that we were able to have a positive effect on, the group of people that saw it at the time. And we certainly got good feedback about it, and we certainly didn't get any protests about it. So that was a good thing.
Okay. And for the benefit, Marc, of folks who don't know the show, and I'm not overly familiar with it, could you kind of give maybe the Reader's Digest summary of what the play is all about?
The play is basically a story about Matthew Shepard, who was brutally beat in Laramie, Wyoming for being gay, victimized. And the bottom line is it was truly a hate crime. And the beautiful thing about this play is the Teutonic Theater Company and Moises Kaufman and his group of actors they went out there and interviewed hundreds of people over a long period of time. And then he took the artistic license to create those interviews and some beautiful monologues and some beautiful dialogue, to really reveal what happened there, how it happened. And he was generous in allowing everybody to have their opinion. And so it is a ride, it is a journey. And unfortunately, I think it still applies 25 years later. There's still hate crimes out there. And we need to look at it as a society and say, what the hell are we doing? We can do better than this. But it's a rough one, but it's still peppered with some beautiful moments, a little comedy, and it's a ride, that's for sure.
And what I find interesting about this upcoming production is the fact that two of you are going to be kind of co-directing it. I guess I want to ask Bill in terms of that experience, because have you done that before? Or a lot of plays?
I have done co-directing before, and one of the people I co-directed with most recently was Amanda Sales.
Okay,
and
sure.
She and I co-directed 5 Women Wearing the Same Dress that we did at Mars Hill a few years back. So that's one of the more recent times I've co-directed. But yes, I have, and it's nice to co-direct sometimes because you get a chance to focus on certain aspects, and the other director focuses on certain aspects, and we interplay back and forth. You know, when it could be a staging thing, or when it's a director giving a note to an actor, or whatever it is, we confer, and most of the time we agree. You know, we're coming from the same place with the production, so that really helps. You know, and having done it before, I have insights into the research, which there's a lot of. The original theater company, the Tectonic Theater Company, performed the show with 8 actors, and we're going to do it with 10 or 11, Mark?
We're up to 11.
11. So we're having 11 voices now. And that's okay, and particularly in a reading, but can you imagine 8 actors playing over 60 parts? You know, it's quite a challenge, but it was very effective. And most recently, Blaine, there's been revivals. So on the 20-year anniversary of the first production, they began doing revivals, and the most recent one was done at the Unitarian Church in Laramie, Wyoming, back in October.
Because again, I'm glad you're mentioning that, because that's certainly kind of an atypical thing for me to see. You know, I'm typically used to one director and to have 2 guys, but I guess it helps when you have, as Marc just said, 11 performers. Marc, can you talk a little bit about the 11 performers? First of all, what are their roles? In other words, they're playing 60 roles. Is that it? In this?
Yeah, it's over 60 roles. I mean, they could be a Baptist minister, the Baptist minister's wife. They could be social workers working in the town, farmers, college student, people working at the bar, which is called Fireside, where
University professor.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, university professors, theater teachers. It covers the whole Laramie crowd.
Now, what makes this production unusual too, and talk a little bit about this, Marc, as well, is that it's a reading, but I wouldn't say it's a typical reading. And can you explain what you're doing with this upcoming production?
Well, it's a reading, but this is why I brought Bill in, because he has done it before, and he has slides, and I always like a little bit of a visual. And doing a reading, I just don't want people to sit in their chair and read. And that's kind of a misnomer about readers' theater. You still have to do the acting. You still have to have the voice. You still have to have all the beats and the moments and the builds and the arcs. But all of Bill's stuff from his previous production, we will use to enhance this. And we're going to try and get people up where they're comfortable getting up and possibly moving around, even with a script in their hand. And they're all going to be probably dressed in black. We haven't decided this, with minimal change of prop or costume, just to indicate who that person is or help them with their characterization. So you won't see a big clothes rack and people changing costumes all the time, just minimal stuff. I'd rather they just do the work and show you who they are.
Now, you've been working with your cast on this for a little bit of time also, haven't
A
you?
little bit of time. We've only had, I think, 3 rehearsals so far.
Okay. And since you, I think, have it in front of you, Mark, just because a lot of people may know some of these performers, can you talk a little bit about the cast?
Well, it's interesting, the cast. When we had auditions in the beginning, the first 2 auditions, not too many people showed up. And then Bill and I were thinking, are people afraid to do this? Is it too intense? Is it gay themed? Is it a hate crime thing? What are they afraid of? And then slowly, over a little bit more time, people started showing up or contacting us. And I have to say, at this point, the people, 11 people that are involved in this, are there because they want to be there. They chose to be there. They know it's an important story and they want to be part of telling it. So you have Madison Brightwell, Ellen Pappas, Bill's wife, Liz Aiello, is helping out. She's going to be the narrator for Act 2 and 3. We chose to have some people do narration just to free the other actors up to really dig into their stuff. We have Lynn Nyhart, Steve Gustafson, Brendan Nickerson, Susan Mingle, Michael Caravere, William Schwartz. We have a new replacement for Lily because Lily was injured, Victoria Chai, and we have Missy Stone.
Okay, so again, quite a cast in that. I don't know, Bill, if you're familiar with these, but most of these people have done a lot of local stuff and they've been great.
All right. And yeah, Steve Gustafson and Lynn Eihart, I know, and I brought them into the mix as well.
Yeah, and Lynn is just a phenomenal actor as well. So, I mean, what's really exciting, Bill, about this is that these aren't just community actors. I mean, they are community actors, but they've done a lot of other stuff as well.
Absolutely.
And talk about that in terms of people doing community theater. I think that's almost a misnomer because the community theater is every bit as professional, if not more so at times, than, quote, professional theater. What
Well,
exactly?
yeah, it can be. And what's happened in Asheville, I think, is it has become a real jumping off point for a lot of young people who've been trained in the theater, who don't immediately want to go to New York or to Los Angeles or a larger hub like Atlanta. So they come to Asheville and they have opportunity. And so they have opportunity to kind of cut their teeth and do some work in some pretty good productions with other people who are like them. And so other people, as you know, came to Asheville and decided to stay, and they were also trained. And so they've been here for a while. And I've got a whole list of local performers who are very talented people. And I think Marc knows many of them as well. They just decided to be in Asheville because they love Asheville and do their creative work here. And I think that's what Asheville has become.
And talk a little bit about, since you mentioned it with before too, in terms of acting, being an equity actor versus a non-equity actor. A lot of people don't know the difference, I think. What is the difference?
Well, the real difference is not so much talent, but it's the union card, which allows you to make more money if you are in one of those larger places. And places like, NC Stage in Asheville are an equity company. Flat Rock uses primarily equity people. And it's not that there's a difference in talent, it's just a difference in recognition and pay structure, obviously. Some people do it for the love of it. And if you look at more mature actors in our community that are working, they may have had other careers, but wanted to do this in their senior years. And we see a lot of talented people who didn't train as actors, but have come to like it and keep doing it. And there's some pretty good ones out there.
And even in terms of the equity card, as you were saying, that opens up opportunities because there are a lot more theaters out there who aren't equity theaters and they can perform in. And was it, if you have an equity card, you have restrictions about where you can perform?
You do indeed. You're only supposed to work in union signatory theaters. So that limits your ability in a community like Asheville, where there is a limited amount of equity work. But if you're, say, in New York or Los Angeles or Miami even, and Bill could say that, to Florida, there's a large Florida scene of equity theaters. Those are places where it would be beneficial. But if you're just getting out of school and wanting to cut your teeth and learn your craft, well, Asheville's a place for you.
And talk about this upcoming production, Marc, if you would, in terms of we talked about it's a reading, but it's at a theater. Talk about the theater where it's at.
A couple of years ago, the brand new Weaverville Community Center opened, and Janice Schreiber and myself and a couple other people, we started Artisan Players there, started doing some, Janice teaches some classes. I've helped her out a little bit. So there's some improv classes going on there, classes for children. They're all free. And then we started with, a couple of years ago, we started with the first production of Love Letters, which was Janice and I think maybe 50 or 60 people showed up. And the last play reading that we did there, Rumors, there were over 116 people. So certainly the Weaverville Community Center, it has a draw. We have developed a base, and I hope that we fill the seats for this as well. It's an ideal setup for readings, and we're trying with every reading to enhance it and take it a little further to see if we can push the limits and actually do a full production, a limited set, limited lightings, maybe even a one-person play, but to actually do a full production and see if we can fill the house for a weekend and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and actually make some money for the Artisan Players for future productions.
And one of the things you do there, which I think is kind of cool in terms of realizing that folks should get paid or possibly paid. You don't pay them per se, but they have a very interesting way of raising funds. And talk a little bit about that. If you come to see the show, you don't have to pay for a ticket, but what do they encourage you to do?
It's donation. So there's 2 donation baskets in the back, and it's interesting. I've been in the back watching as the director, and you see people donate when they come in, whatever, pay what you want, donate what you want. And then if you're successful with Act 1, you see a little more money come in. If you're successful with Act 2, as they're leaving, there's more money. And so what we do with that money is pay for the, whatever rights and whatever printing and whatever goes into the production. And then whatever left, we divide amongst the actors, and it's gas money. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of people just say, nah, just give it back to the theater or give it to the community center.
Very nice. Marc, again, if you can repeat the highlights, the date of the show is when?
It is June 25th, starts at 6 p.m. It'll still be a little light out. And it is 3 acts, but the third act is kind of small. There will be an intermission after Act 2, and it will probably run from 6 to about 8:30 or 9 o'clock with a Q&A afterwards to open up discussion about what they've just seen and how they feel about it.
Okay, and again, if folks want to find out more about it, I have it in front of me, but the center doesn't have a website per se, but they have a Facebook page. And if you just look under Facebook, Weaverville Center for Creative and Healthy Living, you'll find that as well. And people are in for a real treat. And just to wrap up, let me ask you both, in terms of after this particular production, upcoming plans, Bill, is there anything that you can share with folks?
Boy, what do I don't know about productions right now in terms of what I'm directing so much.
But what else are you doing?
But I'm very busy writing. My writing partner, Robert Uritis, and I have created an 8-episode series called East Point. And we are now shopping it around, and we are working to get it produced. So we've been at this for about 5 years now, and we're getting closer. We're very excited about it, and yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay, folks want to keep track of Bill Gregg in terms of what he's doing or this upcoming series. What's the best way to find out about you?
Well, you can certainly go to my Facebook page. In fact, you can find me on Facebook under Bill Gregg. And there's things like that I put up there. But most of the time, I don't have a website. So I kind of get information out to people through the regular terms of emails and, broadcasting, things like that. And that's how I do it. But my Facebook page is a primary place to do that.
Okay. And Marc, same question, both one, in terms of you have anything upcoming that you can share, and 2, in terms of getting in touch with you.
Getting in touch with me, probably best on Facebook. I have a Marc Cameron page connected to my legal name, William Brochinski. And I have a third eye, which was a small theater company that kind of got closed, mine that kind of got shut down with COVID. I'm still kind of trying to breathe life back into that. But I'm going to be busy for the rest of the year. I'm traveling to Italy, which I'm excited about. And thank you for all your information you've provided me. But I also work for the realacademy.co, and we educate child protective workers and case managers in the state of Florida. And that will keep me busy traveling and locally probably till December. And then I'm going to become a snowbird.
Okay, well, anyway, I look forward to seeing the both of you at the upcoming production of the Laramie Project. Sounds really exciting. And thanks for being my guest on this BLAINESWORLD podcast. Also, thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and we'll hopefully see you guys in person in the near future. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and it looks like we're going to be cut off, so I'll say goodbye to you now. Thanks.
Bye.